No. I want to keep going down that for a second because I think there's something important here. And the whole reason why I wanted to get a diverse panel religiously but also ethnically is because we've got to work this out. Because if we don't work this out, we're going to look like the UK.
The UK.
And tribalism is going to take over. And you know what the worst part out of all of it? There are people like Tommy Robinson, like Majid Nawaz on the opposite sides, and they're not talking to each other. And they were on the same side when it came to the COVID stuff, the vaccine stuff, but now they're like at opposite sides of this.
Are they?
Right, yeah, they are.
didn't
And
know
they're
that,
not talking. And so when I see that, I'm like, I'm very protective of what we have here. And I'm trying to work out how do we articulate what this is. Like we clearly have stuff in common. How is it that we can safeguard Australia and our movement and everything that we're doing so that we don't go the way of the US or the UK with this stuff? And so I did want to ask you on this particular topic, Moe, if Australia becomes a majority Islamic country in terms of the population, it sounds like you'd support the change of the laws to be more aligned to Sharia law. But aren't you a bit concerned that in the event that happens, Australia will not look like the country that you grew up in?
I don't like to answer what if questions because that's very.
But you've said 50%. If it goes 50%, then you'd support the changing of the laws fundamentally. I mean, the Australia you grew up with, what made it great wasn't the cutting off of hands.
I said we're 0.5%. We're a very small minority.
Yeah.
In Australia with 50+% Muslims, I mean, you're doing pretty good. Preaching the religion. I don't like to answer what if questions. It's very at that level when you have 50+% Muslims and God knows how the country would, look like or what people actually want from within,
This is my concern. In the first 15 minutes, we've been talking about the values that make Australia great. And I truly believe that Sharia law is contrary to that. I truly think that if we go that way, it's going to become like Lebanon.
Yeah.
It's going to become like Syria. And don't get me wrong, there are outside influences that are destroying those countries.
Yeah.
But the reason why we went to these protests and often we came across similarly valued people is because we came from places that turned to crap for whatever reason.
Yep.
And I'm really worried that this blip in history we have in Australia down under, we will lose if we don't define what the hell
my
this
message
is.
would be to like the Muslims, the Muslim collective. I'm against putting Sharia law in the West. If you want to show Muslims what Sharia law is and show it's a benefit to society, let's do it back at home. I mean, they brought down the Ottoman Empire, which was a legitimate caliphate. If we still had that, there's no Muslim country today that's implementing Sharia law and Islamic teachings for it to look good in front of the West, right? They've got monarchies in place like Saudi Arabia, which our religion is against. They're implementing it wrong. I'm all for bringing it back at home. Make it look, it's about Sharia law it's similar to capitalism, right? Small government, it looks after, small business. It prevents degeneracy, things like that, right? Like, I mean, it's very conservative and traditional. So if you bring that back in the Middle East, but there's another, outside external factors. They don't want an Islamic, awakening in the Middle East because the global financial system's at risk. It's a threat to all of that because in Islam, interest is prohibited. Usury is prohibited. And it's a threat to that.
You mentioned 0.5%. Australia is close to 3% of Islamic faith. And in New South Wales, it's closer to 5%.
Okay.
And if we take age into it, so if we just take people below the age of 40, in Sydney, you're looking at closer to double digits.
Okay.
And that number just keeps on continuing to rise to the point where you get to the total of Lakemba, for example. And including Auburn, you're looking at closer to 68%.
I'm Muslim.
So 0.5, I just needed to correct those numbers because it's not.
I'm saying as a country, Australia, what are we, 0.5% Muslim? That's what I was trying to say.
3. 3 of Australia, close to 5 of New South Wales.
Okay.
And again, if you make that close to Sydney of under the age of 50, so retired people don't really participate in too much, you're looking much beyond double digits. And again, 60 60+%
Yeah.
through most of those areas. So this is no longer something that we can think. Those numbers of 0.5% was more Damien's parents' kind of question. We're looking at very different ones where you're looking at tomorrow, Muslim Votes Matters in Brunswick, Victoria, will be hosting its first its launch.
That's right. That's right. And I do want to get into this. And by the way, guys, this isn't meant to be a is Islam compatible with Australia discussion. We literally had the Aboriginal issue worn as a face mask last year, where they tried to fundamentally change our constitution so that there'd be a third chamber. Like, they want us to have more than one flag. Like, there are